But I had an email ask me, how do you answer people who claim that Jesus never even existed? Now, did you know that that's actually, there's a lot of people out there claiming he didn't even exist? Well, it's good that you hear this because there's a growing movement of people who claim that Jesus never existed. And our kids are hearing it. I can tell you that right now. And what they basically do is they, write off the Bible. Well, right there, they lose. Because the Bible itself is the most well-attested and supported ancient document in human history. And if they accept things like the writings of Plato and Socrates and Herodotus and some of these other ancient writings, they have to accept the New Testament because the New Testament, what they call manuscript evidence, is unbelievably more conclusive and supportive than any of these others. I think, for example, I believe it's Herodotus, there's 1,000 years between the time he supposedly wrote this and the earliest copies we have. 1,000 years. So how do we know someone along the line didn't write that and put his name on it? Well, the New Testament's a whole different ballgame. The New Testament was written between the years of about, we know it wasn't before 40 A.D., so you can say 40 A.D. all the way up to 105 A.D. Well, we have manuscript papyrus fragments from that time, right up at the time it was written. That's not true about any other document on the face of the earth. Now, there were people who lived in that time who wrote against the Bible, and yet they never claimed, "You guys made this up. There was no such thing as Jesus." Now, ask yourself that question. If there are people who lived at the time of the apostles, and they wrote and spoke against Christianity, if he never existed, don't you think they would have brought that up? So it's just insanity. So that's how I answer folks. Is number one, I don't surrender to the idea that the New Testament isn't a accurate, trustworthy testimony of his existence. So I don't take these people seriously at all, and if they want to reject science and facts, that's their problem. I have a couple quotes. This is a guy, no relation to me. My dad's name is Robert L. Miller. This was a guy named Robert J. Miller. And he's a skeptic. He's not a believer, but he's a historian. And here's what he said, quote, "We can be certain that Jesus really existed, despite a few hyper-historical skeptics who refuse to be convinced," end quote. And that's an unbeliever who says flat out. F.F. Bruce is a Christian, but he said, quote, "The historicity of Christ is as axiomatic," which means it's an unchallenged fact, "for an unbiased historian as the historicity of Julius Caesar." So in other words, if you believe in Jesus, you have to believe in Caesar. You have to believe in Julius Caesar, because there's more or just as much evidence for the existence of Jesus Christ as there is for Jesus. And that pretty much sums it up. Was it 5 years ago, we did some videos that are on the internet where it's called Introducing Jesus, and it's a series. And we tackle all these issues and everything. And so I will send anyone who asks me this question, I'll write them an email, but then I'll send them the link. If they've written me an email, I'm taking for granted they can watch videos on the internet. But I want to show you something. If you turn your Bible to 1 John, we have a true historic faith based in fact, but we also need to recognize the motive and spirit behind those who say such things. And in 1 John chapter 4, 1 John chapter 4, Begins in verse 1, Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. Now, read verse 2 with me. Hereby know ye the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesseth that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God. Okay? But then now read verse 3. And every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. And this is that spirit of Antichrist, whereof ye have heard that it should come, and even now already is it in the world. You see that? I mean, John said there would be people who would come and say Jesus had not come in the flesh. And it's not just skepticism, it's spiritual. And it's the spirit of Antichrist. This leads me to believe that when the Antichrist comes, he will join those who will say that Jesus was a myth, but the Christ has come, and I am He. I believe that's what's going to happen. Turn over a couple of pages to 2 John. Might be 1 page, 2 pages, according to how big your print. Look at 2 John and what it says in verse 7. Read that with me. For many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. Okay. They're deceivers. We already saw they're antichrist. And then he sums it up again at the end of the passage, verse 7. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. Now, I know I point this out because I believe that as the stage is being set for the coming of the Antichrist, that is why we're seeing and hearing more of this. And we're seeing and hearing more people claim that Jesus never existed. And they are of the spirit of Antichrist. They are a deceiver. And they are basically serving the same purpose John the Baptist served for Jesus, only they are making straight the paths for the devil's man, the devil's Messiah. And that's what's behind those who would say that Jesus had not come in the flesh. Now, what you're going to find is that a lot of people who are behind this so-called New World Order that's being established, which is setting the stage for the Antichrist, you'll find that they are of this same mindset. Now, I want to tell you something. I listen to people like Glenn Beck once in a while, and Rush Limbaugh, and Bill O'Reilly. Okay, you got the liberals, and a lot of them just are blatantly antichrist. And so it's not a surprise when you find out that Walter Cronkite, for example, didn't believe that Jesus was really a historic person, or if he was, it wasn't what we believe. He believes that there may have been a guy named Jesus, but not the one that we believe in, with the virgin birth and the miracles and all that. And you're going to find that that's what Peter Jennings, for example, who died a few years ago, he was, kind of like the Walter Cronkite of the 90s. He believed the same thing. You read the writings of these politicians who are behind the movers and shakers behind the New World Order. Anyone who's a serious Mason doesn't accept the biblical testimony of Jesus Christ, which would explain why a Freemason named Harry Truman was our president who helped establish the UN. And these guys that get together at Bohemian Grove, they, by and large, now I'm not saying all of them, I think there have been guys who have gone there like Nixon. I'm not saying he's a Christian, but I'm saying Nixon, I believe he went there for political reasons, and Ronald Reagan went there for political reasons. There's been a few who went there for political reasons, but they were at least theists, and they didn't deny the historical Jesus. But by and large, that's what you're going to find. They are the guys behind this stuff that's going on now.